Okay. So David, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, a little bit about what you want to do, et cetera, anything you want to say. We'll give you a couple minutes. If you know
I'm honored to serve. I'm a kind of a local guy, raised in Warren County. My wife and I did our undergraduate, graduate degrees here. She's my high school sweetheart from 1963. Retired in 2014. Our son is an executive sous chef at Purdue. I thought it was time to step up and help the township with any issues they might have. And I'm hopeful I can add to that.
All right, perfect. I appreciate that, and I really look forward to working with you. I'm sure that Brendan does as well. We're excited, and we hope, we've had a lot of board members by now, but every board member brings their own experience, whatnot, and we particularly look forward. I don't know if you mentioned it, I didn't catch it, but you are a chaplain with Lafayette Fire.
Yes.
And we appreciate that experience, and we hope that it'll, that you'll be able to help us on our time on the board, and that we can get some good stuff done, right?
Thank you.
So then let's me pull up the next thing here. So going on to the next item in the agenda, that would be public comments and communications. We obviously, as a result of the executive order, as we included in the agenda, you can participate, and if you have public comments, you can also send them in to us. We usually will have a couple spaces, so basically through the end of the day, if there's any public comments that you guys will have, we can add them to the meeting minutes. But we do have a couple of minutes here. We'll try to limit it. We'll try to be short and quick just so that we can cover the rest of the stuff. But if anybody has a public comment, please either unmute yourself or raise your hand on the sidebar. It's however you guys prefer. Is there any public comment at this moment?
Hi, Ann Hal. Is our trustee on tonight?
As far as I can tell, no, unless they're one of the iPad ones. But I don't see anybody from that location. So I believe no, but I could be wrong.
I'm still a little confused about, or I should say that I'm still waiting on a more direct answer on what the township spent of our money assisting people in the year 2020 during this pandemic. I know that Tyson put out a very large number with a suggestion of that's potentially how much people have been helped because she advocated to other people to help them. But I still have had no direct answer on how much did our township spend of our money. I'm under the impression it was $0.
So there was some amount spent before the pandemic started. I don't have the number right in front of me. I can get you that number specifically. The total number that we spent from our coffers, from the township money that was budgeted, was in the realm of less than $4,500, 2,500 or so, which was one assistance request from 2019. That's all that we have from our money. So, and I can get you that number specifically, what that was. I think, as far as I've seen, I haven't seen any requests since then, although I understand that we got one approved, the first person approved in March, if it's my understanding. So.
Okay, all right, thank you, that's helpful, thank you.
Yeah. All right, any other public comments, questions?
This is Heather. I know I'm not in the township, but I think Jamie touches on a good point that keeps getting lost. And I think you're all in a move forward moment, and that's fine. But I think some of the key things that are the issue with the trustee and the things the fire department's been facing is getting lost in a bunch of noise that might come across to the public as a tit for tat type of thing, but I think it's because, and I don't think it's anybody's fault, but there's not been any of those key concrete issues addressed. When they're trying to be addressed in the meetings, at least what I've observed is it's a lot of back and forth and he said, she said, and oh, and on Hill, I'm not saying this about what you just said, so this isn't directed to you. Oh, I'll get you that number, and that kind of thing. But I think what's getting lost here is there's a residency issue that was there, yes, but there's also some other issues that were concrete that are facing, that y'all have faced and I don't know what the answer is, but and Jamie, I think I might be confusing you with someone else that's been on the meeting before, but I think you've asked that question before. And I just think there needs to be some way to communicate some of the stuff that people continue to ask. That's just my 2 cents for what it's worth.
Yeah.
If I may, if Jamie would like to
Yeah,
send,
go ahead.
if Jamie would like to send the trustee an email for a Freedom of Information request on the budget, the budget review and the annual report from 2020, it will show exactly what was spent in all of the categories, and it will show you the exact figure of what was spent from our township assistant account. And Brendan is real close. I'm in my basement. That information is upstairs. I will try and get that later, but his figure is very close to what the township actually spent out of our budget.
Yeah. And I can pull it up as well. Takes a little bit of, I'm actually searching it while other people have public comments so that I can give you an exact answer. Anybody else have a public comment or whatnot? I'll give it a few seconds because I know that it's difficult right now.
Yeah, that number is right around $4,200. I know.
Yeah, it's
Like
4,200.
Anil said, just under 2,500 of that was.
One request. Yeah, the number exactly precisely is 4,297. Jamie, that's the exact information there, and it's on page 8 of the annual report. There's a clunky website that you guys can that it can be used. I actually have to, I should include that on our website so that people can actually go through and check for that specific information. Although you can always ask us and we'll try to get it to you too. Because I know that if you don't use that website every day, you might not have as good an idea as to like how to use it specifically. So any questions you guys might have, don't hesitate to ask, even if it's something that we can find through Gateway. Any other public comments?
And Hal, may I ask a
And
question?
Anil, I believe that it had just asked.
Sorry?
I was asking if I may ask a question.
I think so, sure. You're not exactly a member of the public.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're all good.
Is that appropriate at this time for me to ask a question concerning that? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Do we have a number that would list the number of homeowners or people that applied for assistance and those that were granted their request?
Yeah, so again, that'll be on page 8 of the annual report. I believe the total number of requests for assistance as was listed was 124. The total number of recipients of township assistance on that form says 6. And then there's other totals of people that were provided assistance from other sources according to the trustee.
So 124 applied, 6 were granted.
Yeah, that's the number for last year. According to, yeah, that's section A, which was the ones that we directly provided assistance through too.
Okay. Yeah, a follow-up question. Is there any idea we know why 118 weren't provided assistance?
I wouldn't be able to tell you specifically. That's a question that's of interest to us. At least I know me and Brendan and previous board member Michelle, we've had, that was a big area of concern to us. We've never really gotten a straight answer exactly why there was no providing of assistance. The short answer, it seems like most of the people were directed to other sources. We didn't exactly try to provide assistance to them. That would be my understanding of it. But again, that's my understanding of it. All right. Any other public questions or public comments?
Yeah, I do have one just to clarify. 'Cause I'm trying to remember from one of the past meetings that Jennifer was on, the one past meeting Jennifer was on. I believe she said then that money moves to the next year. Is that correct? So we have sort of the surplus now
Yeah.
this year, because I feel like she was suggesting that she was hanging on to it to use at a later date. So we do have that money that was should have and could have been used last year. We have it for this year.
Yes, and I can pull up a number
Should be true,
as
yes.
well. Yeah, it should be true. I can pass, give me a second here and I can pull up that number exactly. So I'm just shuffling between documents, so please forgive me. And sorry. So for the Township Assistance Fund, $15,538.82 were brought forward to the year 2021. So that's the amount that was moved onto this year, in addition to the money that we appropriated by the budget, which
Can you repeat that number, Chair?
$15,538.82.
Thank you.
And then so that money doesn't account for the money that we will receive later in the year. As I understand it, and Jim or Brendan that has a little bit more experience can correct me on this, but the money that we allocated for this year, after people pay taxes, whatnot, that money gets sent to us around June and around December. So we received 2 payments of tax dollars basically that were allocated to the township. So we haven't received those yet, as my understanding of that.
But we're starting the year with $15,000. So we should be like dollar
Yes.
bill right now to people who need assistance, right?
That would be, I think that given the circumstances, and
The
this
right
is
steps?
obviously, we don't, the board doesn't have
Right.
control for the way the
Right.
process of providing assistance, but
Right.
in the circumstances, we probably should be providing significant assistance. That would be.
And I would draw attention to the fact that in the past recent boards, just in 2019, the board lowered the standards such that more people would qualify for aid. And the trustee had run on and at that time had signaled an intent to help more people. So Jamie, I think that would be a correct understanding as to what folks ran on and as to the already made steps of previous boards
Okay, thank you.
this term.
Yeah. Are there any other public questions or public comments before we move on to the next item on the agenda?
Hey, on hell, it's Ed. Do you have just a sec? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Ed.
Okay, I do have one question about the money being carried over. I might have missed it if it occurred, but were you guys ever presented any sort of re-encumbrance? So to re-encumber some of the money that wasn't spent last year to be approved, because just because it wasn't spent doesn't necessarily mean you have access to spend that money right away. That money's got to be re-encumbered for the following year. So you should have been presented with this is the amount of money we want to carry over, it be approved by the board to be able to be spent the following year. Did you guys ever get that?
I believe that we haven't, Brendan. I don't think I've seen any document like that. I know that would be a document that we would have to approve and sign. And as far as I am aware, that hasn't happened.
Okay, I only asked because I just want you to be careful with that, to just be
Yeah.
able to spend that money, because
Yeah.
they're not going to give you extra unless you've chosen to re-encumber that fund. Jim, that's correct, right? Isn't that how that has to happen?
That is correct. She has to make a motion to encumber that at the end of the year and move it into either the rainy day fund or put it back into the funds that it was originally intended for.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure for you guys, just to cover your other end, to make sure that you weren't putting yourself in a spot for that purpose.
All right. So that is something that we'll have to do. And thank you for bringing it to our attention, Ed, specifically. I know this is the first year that I would have to do that per se. So we'll make sure to send an email to the trustee asking for that to be presented as quickly as possible. In addition to that, so are there any other public comments or questions, concerns?
And one other comment on the township assistance. There is a $250 cap in place right now.
And that is actually something that we wanted to verify, because right now, as far as our guidelines for assistance, there is no cap, and there hasn't been a cap that's been approved by the board. And any changes to the township guidelines need to be approved by the board. So I am aware of that concern, and that's actually something that I want us to go through the guidelines later and see if there needs to be any changes that need to happen so that we can mull them over the next couple of meetings and make sure that we make any changes if necessary. Okay. Any other public comments or questions?
I'm sorry, I missed that last question. I have some questionable internet. Who asked that question?
That was Jim. Jim asked about he mentioned that there is a $250 cap on township assistance, and I stated that there isn't a cap as stipulated by the guidelines right now, and that's actually
Correct, okay.
what we hope to cover. I do have it on the agenda, and we will probably be the beginning of a conversation to see if there needs to be changes done, because obviously we've been focusing on perf, and that'll be a big chunk of today's meeting. Anyway, any other public comments before we move on to the next bit? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item in the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes for the March 16th meeting of the Wabash Township Board. So Brendan, I'll leave it to you.
We last met at 6:05 on March 16th of this year. We had our roll call. At the time, we had our two board members, Chair Valentine and Secretary Betts, present, as well as a host of folks from the community. We reviewed resolution number 2021-04, thanking former Chair Wybrock for her service. The chair presented that, and we moved and accepted it unanimously. We reviewed our minutes and approved those minutes from February 9th. Public comment and communications. We did have public comment from several folks on several different issues. Mike Dwyer as to asking where the board member stood on keeping firefighters through this calendar year. John Rienstra Kirikoff spoke about his petition asking the trustee to resign. Zachary Bale spoke about public access, multiple websites, and lots of email for public record. Mike Dwyer then also asked for us to detail the requirements to replace her. To do so, we had our former Democratic Chair, Heather Maddox, speak on the issue and went through that process. Let's see here, skipping down here. Is the attorney who's going to? Okay, so we had some questions about the attorney for the township and whether we had signed a contract. And the chair answered that the trustee would hire the township attorney, but we, the board, would allocate the funds to pay for that attorney. Currently, we allocated $25,000 for professional services, and we expect in the future to have to move money for the attorney. We had noted that we'd yet to see a letter of engagement from the attorney. The chair reported that we had about $632,000 that we should have available for this year in the fire fund. About $352,000 is left over from the loan, $50,000 from the fire fund, $208,000 from property taxes, and $20,000 from miscellaneous revenue. We had, again, several folks speak. We did have Andrew Spiker, a former volunteer for the Wabash Township Volunteer Fire Department, talk about how it was painful for him to leave. And it was an incredibly hard choice, but the trustee had promoted an abusive atmosphere. Kevin Keckler spoke that there was no reason in the world someone who is this dedicated as Andrew Spiker is should be put in this position. And he also noted, Kevin Keckler did, that we are still responding to every single call we get as a township fire department, but you can't, you can take away a station resident and that takes away our responsibility. Greg Mikulski was on the call and noted that she is a resident and got into it back and forth as well with John Ranster Kirchhoff. Ultimately, Chief Ward also cautioned, our former Chief Ward cautioned us to follow the money. We had our fire department update from Deputy Chief Lewis. He's noted that we are still busy at around 100 runs a month, and we are still able to cover everything. It is hard to keep station morale up. We are still in good shape in order to take care of the township. The chair asked what the runs looked like in the past. Deputy Chief noted that we were around 200 runs a year starting out. We are currently ahead of last year's run numbers. The chair asked about the number of volunteers going down over that period of time, or whether that had gone up or down, noting that obviously morale was low. Deputy Chief Lewis, with his length of experience, noted that we started out with around 40 to 45 guys and now have about 10 to 15 volunteers. In our space for the trustee update, it was noted that she was not present. We had discussion of the Fire Protection District feasibility study, which was presented by our chair. And he noted that the financial advisor had been disallowed for him to come to the meeting. So we talked, and by the way, the slideshow is available on our website. We opened the ability to ask questions as well. Of course, you can email those too if you go review it. We had discussion of budget considerations for the 2022 budget process. We looked at resolution 2021-5, which was the resolution electing to join the 1977 Police Officers and Firefighters Pension and Disability Fund. The chair moved to table this with concern, highlighting that we will get our firefighters into a pension plan, but we still needed more information. We wanted to see that vote in the next meeting. The motion was seconded ultimately by myself, and the motion passed unanimously. The presentation of the trustees plan to get 20% of the proposed fire district to freeholders to sign the petition. That did not occur because the trustee was not present. The 11th item on the agenda, resolution to move funds to cover cost of legal counsel. If we'd been able to see the agreement and the letter of engagement between the township and the attorney, we had not been able to review that. We, the board, had not been able to review those documents. So that did not occur. We noted our future meeting dates, of course, being today for our next one, where we wanted to talk about the 1977 Disability and Pension Fund. Ultimately, we adjourned at 7:50 in the evening. Those are our minutes. Are there any alterations, amendments to those minutes?
I don't believe so, no. So I present a motion that we accept the meetings as written by our secretary.
I will second the motion.
I second.
All right. Hearing no opposition, although technically going to vote, but David said aye in the affirmative, and he is shaking his head agreeing. And seeing that, the motion carries. So we approve the minutes, and we'll have them signed, Brendan. So you can send that to me after that, then we can put them on the website as approved. So and we can talk about whether we want to do it using DocuSign or what method we want to use while we're still online. or if it's just simple enough to use a signature in one of our many electronic devices with hand or pen. So we can talk about that. All right. All right, and then going on to the next item in the agenda is the fire department update. Would that be Jim? Is that correct? Deputy Chief Jim Lewis?
Yes, we are still very busy. We're running ahead of last year. I think at the end of March, we had a little over 300 runs. This year compared to last year, it was about 280, and we're ahead of where we were in 2019 also. We are doing the best that we can with everyone. We're keeping our morale up. We have got a training house that we're using for training, along with sharing it with West Lafayette and Battleground also on 52 West, which has been very good. That's about all I can think of right now.
And as I understand that our newest board member, David Tate, attended one of the recent trainings. So we appreciate you being there, and we really do appreciate that, because we know that it's always important to have board members be a little bit communication with the department too, because we're trying to do right by them as well. So yeah, thank you for going there, David. All right. Does anybody have any questions for Jim? I don't personally have any, but just wanted to double check.
No, thank you though.
All right. Going on to the trustee update. I don't see the trustee, and I don't believe that their trustee designate is here either. So I'll just move on to the next item in the agenda.
Angel, can I ask a question, please?
Yes, David. Yeah.
I'm looking, and I'm not trying to stir the pot here, but I'm trying to find answers, obviously, to some of the crises that we're confronted with. And certainly having, I think, the trustees' endpoint is invaluable. Whether or not you may agree with the trustees' position, I think it becomes part of our record. And I'm looking at the 214 duties of a township trustee. It says keep a written record of official proceedings. Item 1. Item 4 is attend all meetings of the township board. And that doesn't seem to be the case. And I would certainly hope that this trustee would feel a sense of duty to attend these, whether or not there is personal issues, but we have to think that it's not an individual we work for. It's actually every taxpayer in the township and those we serve, including all those professional and volunteer firefighters that we depend upon for their service. So I would hope that that be written into the record of the minutes.
And yeah, and to highlight that, before we move on to the next point, I would also highlight that both myself and board member Betts and the former board member Whitbrock, we have all communicated our concern that she is not meeting her requirements as per statute. And that in addition to that, we've also, asked repeatedly that she attend, and that we've communicated with a person that she was in consideration for being a township council, who stated that she is required to be in these meetings, and we've asked and expressed our concern that she is not attending.
I might also indicate item 33 of those duties also indicates within 30 days, her designee needs to be listed and attend if she is incapable of attending. And I'm once again, I want to make it clear, I'm not trying to point fingers here. I think for the operational benefit of this township, with everything that we're facing right now, we certainly need her input. Whether or not we agree with it or not, she has an amount of information that without that, it's very difficult to move forward.
Yeah, agreed. Right, Brendan, just making sure that you're caught up before we jump up. Is there anything else?
No, on my end, we're good. I caught that.
Okay, perfect. All right, so moving on to the next item in the agenda, it was resolution 2021-4, which had been tabled at the last.
And I think
meeting.
that's 5, Chair. That's resolution
sorry?
2021-5. My apologies. I'm just seeing that. That should be 2021-5, if you recall. As resolution 4
Okay,
was thinking, Chair, former Chair Whitebrook.
Correct.
That's correct. I'll make sure to edit the notes to reflect the meeting agenda to reflect that. Thank you for catching that. That was a mistake on my part. Okay, so resolution 2021-5, the resolution electing to join the 1977 police officers and firefighters pension and disability fund. That resolution can be found on our website as presented to us. It was presented to us basically empty for our consideration. And that is available if you go to past meetings on the March 16th meeting. It has the 1977 fund resolution. So before we offer any amendments or whatnot, I would allow, we will like open a period for a discussion of the resolution. I want to corroborate that it's okay with you guys that we go through. We've created like a sheet, like an Excel sheet that has some of the numbers for the amounts that we had at the end of the year, how much we're expecting to receive based on DLGF and like, you know, the DLGF like adopted budget and like the, you know, the changes that they made after we passed the budget, and the additional miscellaneous revenue. Just want to make sure that it's okay with both you and David and Brendan for me to present that real quick.
Just for clarification, you're presenting the resolution, not a vote for approval, correct?
No, yeah, not a vote for approval. It's just, well, we have the resolution. I don't plan on reading it, but like that we can enter discussion and that I can show the spreadsheet and whatnot that we had so that for your guys's and as well as the general public,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so approved, yes.
All right, just making sure there was no objections. All right, so.
I'll take this moment to address a question I see in the chat now from 2 of our folks here attending the meeting. Jim asks, has she sent the letter of commitment for the attorney yet? Sherry Hacker also concurred with that question or underscored it. Not to my knowledge. Would that be a correct statement that we have not seen that letter of engagement, Chair?
Correct. We last asked for it a little bit. I believe it was after last meeting. I don't have the exact date, but we asked about it and they said, the trustee said not yet. My understanding is that there's a pretty hefty bill in the newest round of balance sheets. I just want to later on, we can double check that that amount is posted in the right area. But yeah, we haven't received any statement from any letter of engagement despite our continuous request, which I would note is not standard operating procedure. Usually you would be able to present a letter of engagement before you start hire or begin a contract. You don't, as I understand it from lawyers, like another lawyer that we've communicated with, that it doesn't have to be like that, but it is very unusual for it not to be presented in that manner. And so that is a concern that we have raised and have not received a good answer for.
Just a point of clarification here, and I'm asking out of total ignorance here, but reading all the duties and responsibilities of the board and the trustee, it seems pretty clear that any expenditure of funds has to have an approval before you expend those funds, right?
Yeah, it's not so much necessarily for each expenditure. But like when we allocated the money, right, we allocated a certain amount of money that were to go to professional services.
Right.
So any expenditures for lawyer, whatnot, would fall under that. And like as my understanding is, and Brendan can correct me if I'm wrong, she does have a significant leeway and discretion as to how she spend it, but she has to spend it on that particular issue. So it can only come from that fund for when we pay our lawyer, as well as a financial advisor and other people that are under contract with the township.
So I'm asking because I just in
Pardon,
this time I've
pardon,
been
might
on this.
I just correct something real quick? I think she could pay out of rainy day and perhaps also general operations fund. Would be my expectation. I believe she'd have the leeway to pay out of rainy day professional services if she chose. But go ahead, David.
Okay, perhaps for clarification, including myself and maybe the other township residents here, is it within our purview to write a formal letter that's perhaps notarized that indicates our concern about the lack of engagement with this legal counsel? And I'm concerned about it exceeding any kind of limitation we have when we have no idea what that's going to be. And she was rather specific at one point in time, indicating at the last meeting how much money we spent by asking superfluous questions. I'm just worried that this is going to get out of hand, and without approval at some point in time, the township taxpayers are going to end up paying for this when they shouldn't.
Now, she can spend many hours talking to attorneys and utilize taxpayer dollars to do so, as that pertains to the office of the trustee.
Right.
There's not much we can do that with that other than scrutinize it and draw attention to it when she comes to ask for more money to replenish rainy day and replenish professional services, and when we ask for receipts as to what she spent it on. I, for one, when she brought up those numbers you cite, when she brought up the 8 hours of the attorney, 8 or 9 hours she cited that we owed, my question was, well, what was that? We had the attorney for maybe an hour and a half of time, maybe a couple emails, 3 to 5. That in no way equates to 8 or 9 hours of work. So I'm curious as to what that work was, what that time was spent on as well, because that is the taxpayer dollar.
So we don't have anything from the legal counsel that specifically lists the billing time?
We have not received it as a board. Maybe the trustee has received it. I understand that she's received the bill, but I don't know how detailed it goes into what each hour was spent doing specifically. That would be something that we would have either ourselves or somebody would have to ask a trustee in a public request for information.
Is that within our purview to ask the legal counsel to submit that?
I think that's okay. So, and I'm trying to be very careful here. Part of the problem that we have is that none of us is experts in the law, and for the decision for like something like this, a question like that, the legal counsel would be the one to answer it, for which they would have to attend the meeting, which they do not at the behest of the trustee. So I think that it could be within our purview, but I don't have the legal expertise to answer that definitively.
My understanding is that it's certainly of the purview of any taxpayer, what the expenses are. The nature of the conversation would be a subject of client-attorney privilege.
Correct.
However, in this case, we, the board, are also the client. So it is certainly within our purview to call the law office and ask a question, in my opinion.
And we have to approve that budget expenditure at some point, correct?
Correct. Especially again, if she happens to run over an allotted amount, or if she runs out early and needs to ask for more money from some place, that would be a natural oversight point.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what's keeping us from getting that answer, but I think that
A
is
non-responsive attorney would be the frank answer at this particular point.
please.
Yeah,
repeat.
we've a non-responsive attorney is the frank answer. We've tried reaching out to the attorney with basic questions, and after we were told that we couldn't contact them and the council was told that, we haven't really had a single response to any of attempted communications, even to figure out if he was still our attorney, to be perfectly frank.
I would send a notarized request for signature letter asking for that.
The trustee is our in-house notary, but I'm sure one of us knows a notary.
I-
Andy
yeah.
Young asked a question I'd like to just quickly address as the board. Has the township ever paid for a lawyer or financial consultant in the past? The answer is yes, the township has. Previous to my term, I can't speak specifically, but during our attempts to get our first emergency fire loan and throughout the process, we did pay for what's known as bond counsel. We've also, as I understand it, incurred debt with other attorneys here in town. So we have paid counsel in the past. Have we paid financial consultants? Yes. The board in the previous year considered 2 different proposals from 2 different financial consulting firms. The board at the time, chaired by Beth Tran and seconded by myself, voted to approve a contract with the least expensive of the 2, who had the best reviews of the people with whom we spoke specifically, the chair and I, speaking with the people who reviewed each consultant agency. The 3 that we spoke with spoke glowingly of the one the board chose. However, Reedy Financial, also well respected, had several decent reviews. However, one of their reviews actually referred us to the consultant that the board chose. The trustee found it outside of her ability to work with the financial consultant that the board chose, and demanded to work only with Reedy Financial. Ultimately, we work now with Reedy Financial. And yes, we've paid, and I do not know the total sum of money we've paid to Reedy, but it is certainly on the order of more than $5,000. Again, I do not know the specific amount at this time. And I do not know the work for this year that Gabe has completed, as our communication with Gabe has been constricted as well, Gabe Girth being our senior municipal advisor.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go back to the perf worksheet. So I'm gonna pull it up here. So we have pulled up here, and this is available on our website. If it doesn't show up very neatly on your computer, I do apologize for that. I know that doing things over Zoom is a little bit complicated, but I'll go highlight some of the things that we have been under consideration. So the proposal that is presented that was presented to the board would establish a PERF 1977 fund for the township firefighters. And just to give you an idea of that, the PERF is like the most common, as I understand it, among professional firefighters departments. West Lafayette has it. If my understanding correct, is that Lafayette also has a perf board, and most of the professional ones do, for a variety of reasons. One, if you're a professional firefighter and you want to move to another department after age 36, then you need to already be in the 1977 fund to be able to move into that department. So there's some constraints. And in addition to that, it is a good benefit plan for the firefighters. I'm certain that maybe Jim at some point, if anybody has questions, might be able to give you a bit of an answer. I also have read some of the stuff, so I might be able to answer a little bit of it. I am not an expert. We had a lawyer come in. He explained some of the different benefits, whatnot, as well as like some like different components of other retirement plans. So the general bit of it would be that we pay around 17% for all of the department people. So that's our contribution. And on top of that, each firefighter would be putting in an additional 6% into their benefits. And so that would be of salary, obviously. So part of what makes it a little bit more complicated is that we have to go back and consider whether we're going to pay time before we retroactively basically have people join the department. There are some constraints with that, and we would have to decide what that looks like. I have in this spreadsheet assumed that we are going to go back all the way to the beginning of their service with the department, since throughout their different times, they were told that they would be receiving retirement benefits and that they would be doing work to do that. So for example, Joe Wade, he has been in our department since 2012, and you can see how much he earned in each of those years. Ed Ward, who is no longer employed with us and would not be a part of the PERF plan, he was in our department between 2016 and 2020. That is in the order of $206,000. Travis Merkel and Drew Hampshire, who were recently hired on last year, would be receiving about $56,000 by the end of 2021. Now, as far as the retirement benefits, this table, the second little chart, like the second table, if you will, in this page, has the amount of money that each firefighter would have to, like how much we would have to include going back through the end of the year. So for the township, that is how much we would have to pay for Joe Wade from the very beginning of his service in 2012 to 2021, as well as the next column is the personal through 2020, and then the personal through the end of April, roughly. There is a little bit of a discrepancy there because I don't know exactly what our pay periods are, because the board members receive are paid once a year and I don't have the specific pay period. So the margin, there would be some minor discrepancy, probably within a couple $100 in that number, because I assumed that it would just be 1/3 of the year that they would be that through the end of April, how much that would be. And then, so that number, you can see the total through 2021, how much that would be for each of the individual firefighters. And then as well, you can see the total addition of those individuals, how much that would be. And then 2022 perf estimate, I did make a mistake. Right now, Ed isn't employed. So that number, I will go ahead back and erase it there for this particular cell. But you can see how much going forward the township would have to pay each year in the retirement benefits. So at our current capacity, it would be about $36,000 for the 3 firefighters for 2022. But it would be 107 if we were to do everything retroactive from the moment we began, from the moment they began to be employed by the township through the end of April. And then for 2022 year-end balance for the fire loan, for the fire department, we had $51,741. That was our year-end balance for that fund. Then our certified levy for this year was $207,655. And then we have some miscellaneous revenues, and those come out to $20,392. And those were compiled using both Gateway and then DLGF as a source as well for different documents that say how much we will receive. And the miscellaneous, just to be clear, is an estimate because that changes depending on other stuff. In addition to that, so that comes out to about $279,000. And then the fire loan, which is designated for expenditures explicitly within the fire, for fire department, for the wages as well as benefits, whatnot, that comes out to $351,897. So at the beginning of the year, for the available this year, we had about $631,686. Going through here and looking at the estimated budget according to the trustee, with some changes that I created based on the actual salary of our employees, because we no longer have a fire chief, for example. This line is empty here, and eliminating this expenditure for 2020 because we didn't put any money into retirement benefits, and then adding all of that expense as calculated by us here in this same number, the $107,000. We can see that the total expenditure for this fund comes out to about $524,000, including personal services, supplies, and services and charges. So, and that same number is the one that we have here for the expenses with the current staff, and the predicted balance at the end of the year, if we were to do all of the retirement benefits from the beginning of their services in the township, it would come out to about $107,381 at the end of the year. Now, I want to be clear and to say that these numbers aren't definitive. Some things might change or whatnot. Obviously, budgets and expenses change and vary over time. And in addition to that, there's always a possibility that a trustee would choose to put some additional expenses on the fire loan that would be somewhat related to fire, but might not be exactly what we would originally have intended to designate for that. And I think that that's part of what the conversations need to be, to make sure that anything that we are putting on that and additional expenses makes sense and is justifiable. But anyway, so that's just going through that. I guess Brendan, David, are there any questions or whatnot, or things you want to highlight or whatnot? Just want to give you guys, sorry for the long presentation.
Yes, I would. No, that was great on Hull. I've linked the worksheet in our minutes as well, but I would encourage folks on this call, if you're interested. I know we often get very specific questions, and we often have to send people, as you highlighted, to a clunky website. Again, this is available on our website. Please take a look at it again if you've got questions about specifics on Hull Fed. It's a living document. Oftentimes what we've got in terms of projections for the future are just that, projections that we get from the state. And we have to kind of work within that as best we can. And what we've provided here is kind of the sum of the picture as best we can tell from our own gathered facts. And that's mostly on Hull and his groundwork too, as well as folks providing that information our way. So again, I would just highlight that and say thank you and encourage folks to take a look, and it will be linked in our minutes as well.
A quick question I'm asking, because obviously I'm not a CPA, but if I look at this sheet, and correct me if I'm wrong here, we still have a balance on the fire loan. That's item 1187 loan of roughly 352,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was the 2020 year-end balance, correct?
Right. And then if we go forward with this retirement benefit, how are we going to pay for that?
So, I mean, so there are two alternatives. I mean, one of them, which is likely in the future, is if we were able to create a district or territory, this would be part of what's already taken into account into why we are establishing a new rate, whatnot. But more realistically, if we're, especially in the near future, we likely will need to seek a second fire loan, which is part of what our estimates, including the fire district, what do you call it? The feasibility study takes into account that we would be requesting 3 fire loans, which this only includes up to the first fire loan. So that's somewhat something that has already been talked about a little bit, but obviously that is something that connects with this year's budget as well. So it's, something that we obviously need to discuss. And as Ed said, our understanding, and we're a little bit murky on this, I want to be careful about it. We haven't received any specific documentation saying that it's been approved by the state, but we understand that the second year has been approved by the state possibly. But we haven't received any specific communication. So I want to be careful with my words there in that sense.
Certainly understand, and I'm sure other conversations have happened with the professional fire group before this.
Yeah.
But my concern is I don't see anything on here that's going to allow us to pay these loans off, and I'm certainly not in favor of a district, nor is Gabe Girth, who sent me some information. It looks fiscally it's better to go with a territory, and I've talked to several of the fire professionals around the county, and they believe that as well. But my concern for the township is if I keep looking at this and we keep asking for loans, I don't see any way that we can pay these things off, and we're going to dig us into a big financial hole here. I am all for providing the firefighters with retirements and benefits. I think they should have had that long time ago. That boat has sailed, but let's figure out how we can do this that benefits them, but also doesn't dig us into a big financial hole. Now, I may be shooting an empty gun here, so if anybody knows more about this and I'm wrong, please let me know.
I would just note that we have to find a way to make up a deficit almost regardless, and the perspective very early on of the leadership from, I guess, from the executive's office was that we were going to seek a fire loan. The board very much so pushed to know what the trustees saw as our future funding source, as in how are we going to pay this off sustainably and maintain these services.
Right.
You know, ultimately, obviously, we've looked at territories and districts. I have opinions on that too. I'm glad that you've done kind of the groundwork to gain other opinions, and Gabe Girth has also weighed in, you know, and given his recommendations. We do have other options, you know, as you've just highlighted, as Chair Valentin has highlighted, as I've highlighted, as former Chair Whitebrock has highlighted, we do have other options. Now, the point is this: if we're going to maintain even the services we have, even the paid staff we have, we may be able to, again, kind of hold on to our savings, whatever we don't spend, and maintain that for a few years, but that's not a sustainable solution. So David, since we're kind of looking at what is our long-term solution anyway, are we going to add ambulance service and extend our services and raise our levy in order to justify that? Are we going to go into a territory or district, which the chair highlighted, would take into account what we have as our operating fire expenses? So again, we are trying to professionalize the fire department. Lord knows, the public knows, the media knows, everyone on that board knows that I've had my disagreements with the trustee. However, her intent very early on to expand services with the fire department was certainly a well-founded goal, and something that our firefighters have asked for, something that they need in order to do their job well and at a professional capacity, which we demand of them as a growing community. So I do certainly support expanding services. But now, again, the chair and I and other board members have expressed concern about adding staff and inviting staff and making promises to staff without having understandable funding moving forward, without having that solidified. We've raised questions as to, you know, I guess even the morality of it, really. However, we are still looking at this. We've kind of waited. We've looked at the numbers. That's why the chair has spent the time to accrue the data to see how long we could last before we had to have funding, you know, because we don't know how long it would take the trustee to push forward her own plan herself, or whether we have to kind of scrap that and go towards a different direction.
Yeah.
Which we'd like to do as the board, frankly, you know, and which everyone else would like us to do.
Yeah. And you know, and what I would put on there, my 2 cents would be that we, although this isn't ideal, like in the sense, like I don't want us to be running fire loan to fire loan to fire loan. I also do have a concern when it comes to our paid guys. How much longer can they stand here without having benefits? You know, somebody that might be close to the age of 36, you know, they're gonna leave. They're gonna leave our department if that comes to be, because they don't have an ability in the future to, one, receive honestly a frankly a pretty generous pension for the work that they do, which is obviously very dangerous work, but also allows them to transition to other departments if need be, because, you know, that those changes happen in life sometimes. And my biggest concern if we weren't to pass this would be, well, one of my biggest concerns would be what happens to the firefighters there. Like, we would lose them. It's, you know, we're not being competitive with our neighbors and other departments as well. And then the second part of that as well goes into the fact that we need these guys to be able to continue providing the level of fire protection that we're providing. So I certainly don't want us to be running fire loan to fire loan, and I would encourage our trustee to do the work to, and I actually share your view, David, that a fire territory would be the smartest thing. So yeah, Brendan, I see your hand raised, so I'll give you an opportunity there. Chime in as well.
No, honestly, I think you're absolutely right. I would encourage the trustee to do the work. I was just kind of wanting to highlight that.
Just for point of clarification, I've talked to Chief Lewis and some of the firefighters at Wabash Township. I've talked to Chief Heath at West Lafayette, Chief Ply at Purdue, the mayor, and they are certainly supporting Wabash Township. They think it's a extremely well-respected and highly utilized what I think we all can call it professional fire group. The volunteer sounds fine, but we know they're really professionals. And the concern I have is that these are good men and women that we totally expect them to show up 24/7 and help us in any situation. And I'm genuinely concerned that they don't have any avenue right now for benefits and retirement, which they deserve. On the other side of that coin is I would be remiss if I didn't say that I don't want to back the township residents into a hole we can't get out of. And is there, and I'm asking this question, is there any kind of strategic plan? Is there any kind of plan that says, if we do this, this is the type of levy that we're going to have to ask over the next 3, 5, 6, 7 years? Because as this area continues to grow,
Yes.
we all know it's going to grow. These guys are going to need more staff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Deputy Chief, I believe he noted that it's built into the loan that we pay for the loan, essentially. That's part of it. But yeah, no, certainly there's the notion that we need to have a plan. The trustee has proposed one recently, and it just so happens that we happen to disagree.
Yeah, and the, you know, and for example, in the fire district, one that shows up, the feasibility study, which is again available on our website under the March minutes, under the March meeting tab. That feasibility study assumes that we'll be hiring, it's 7 staffers, if I remember correctly, and if not, I'll correct the record to reflect it later. But 7 staffers, including benefits. So like whatever decision we do make
Right.
going forward,
And this
like
is,
that's
and the
part of
reason
this.
we can't go into the whole too. Oh, I'm sorry, Chair. I didn't.
No,
I'm
you're
sorry.
good. Sorry, you're fine. Go ahead, Brendan.
I was just going to note that, you know, David, too, the state has, you know, Indiana is obviously a state that talks a lot about fiscal responsibility. Indiana has changed fire loans. So just previous to our term, it could have been that we ran from fire loan to fire loan to fire loan. However, now they're capped. So it sort of like mandates you find that solution. A district or territory would be that sustainable solution where it would set the levy at, okay, at levy is going to be X because you said to reach the capacity you need with the staff you need, with the benefits you need to be competitive in your community and staff your department. This is the rate you need. You know, this rate is justified and warranted by this need. That's the idea. Those would require us to propose it as this is our bulk need, therefore this rate is necessary. So the state sort of forces you into that decision one way or the other. So it wouldn't be necessarily, even if we did opt to accept the trustee's notion that we should do a fire loan, a fire loan, a fire loan, and then jump into our own approach to either a district or territory. You know, obviously I think that the board has always felt that we could make that move without taking 3 fire loans.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that that's part of what we would like to see different in the trustees' proposals. Actually, and I'm in a minute here, I'm going to cede some of my time to Ed Ward, our former fire chief. He has his hand raised, and I think that he has something to contribute. But before I jump onto him, I also want to note that there are avenues that, frankly, are no longer being explored that once were. And I want to get this right. Brendan was have been there a little bit longer, so he might correct me on the specific details. But our fire department, especially our former fire chief, was looking at a grant or a possible grant that we were in the running for that would have allowed us to expand our number of paid employees, and it would have also helped us cover for some time the expenses for expanding in the department. Now there were some changes because of COVID, and it that particular year that went to established departments that were struggling to pay for their paid fire guys and whatnot. But for future years, including this one, the expectation is that that would be a possibility. There are options out there that a trustee spending time in the office doing some work on that front might be able to help us craft a plan going forward that incorporates some changes and that allows us to build up without having to go into debt. Brendan, I see you unmuted yourself, so you can add to that or whatnot.
No, you're absolutely right on hold too. We had the board when we first started talking about a fire loan when we came into office and realized that we had to make a move because rainy day had been essentially spent down. the rope had ended. So we looked at other options beyond just a loan, which was the emergency stopgap measure. So we didn't have to cut services. We did look at grants. That's something that the board was intent on. We kind of researched, and really it was, like you mentioned, Chief Ward who came to us with progress, told us about the proposal he had put together and was submitting, very action oriented. So we had applied, and he went through that process, spoke with folks all over about our approach. But anyway, yeah, you're absolutely right. There were changes. It's something that we should look forward to in the future and repropose with support from the trustee's office for sure. And I also think it's something you build on. The Safer Grant is an excellent opportunity, but it is by no means the only opportunity as well.
Yeah. All right, David, were you planning on saying something before I cede some time to Ed? I don't want to cut you off.
You guys are going to regret getting me on this board. So the question I have is maybe one more of a teamwork kind of thing is maybe Jennifer's just overwhelmed. Maybe she feels that she's been backed into a corner. I don't know, but I frankly still see her as part of this group, that we need her input, we need her support, and likewise, she needs ours. Would it behoove us, because there's just too much relying, the fire department, the township, is it practical for us to meet with the people with the fire groups and propose something of a territory and how to manage this so that the township volunteer fire department gets what they need, man-wise, benefit-wise, and then we look how we're going to pay for that? Can't we get off the dime here and get moving on this? That's my question.
I certainly hope that we can. I'll be frank and say that, like, over my time on the board, and this is actually part of the good thing about having newer board members, although we've had too much turnover. The new blood does help keep us going forward to some extent. But we have in the past tried to start conversations about a territory, whatnot, and they've been shut down. But I would encourage us to do it once again and have that outreach, because I do want us to have a solution. And I think that when it comes to territory, it would be something that would be good for the township. I will say that I am not very optimistic at this moment, given past behavior, but it is something that I have tried to do throughout my time on the board, and that I know that Brendan has been keen on as well as previous board member Whitbrock. And I am glad that you're on that same page too, because we need a permanent solution.
Well, let me offer this, and maybe at some point, maybe make it a motion so it's approved, but I would be willing to throw myself out there to chair this type of look into a fire territory, the cost and everything else associated with that, and then present a report to the board and to the township.
Yeah, I don't think that we need a specific approval, like when a motion, but I would certainly support that, and I would look forward to that. And would you characterize that as correct, Brendan? I don't think that it needs to be approved by a motion per se.
No, does not need to be. It could be. Actually, I do believe you could establish a literal committee to do that. The funny thing is, it would just be a committee of literally one or all of us, just by nature of how committees have to be in township government for most townships. To that end, though, I myself, and I know other folks who have served on the board, numerous folks who have served on the board, have gone toward that rabbit hole, have tried to broach that with not only just the trustee, but try to broach it with other bodies in the community. I think it's a worthwhile venture on some level, but I would caution, because what I have found is that one really needs a willing participant in the trustee, but not only that, someone that other bodies are willing, and perhaps more than willing, to work with. And that is the concern. The fact that other bodies are not willing to work with the leadership here currently. Because of that, we are hamstrung into the only solution she'll propose, because it is the only solution that she has available, given what she's willing to put into it and what others are willing to do in terms of working with her. So David, we've certainly kind of looked at that. It's something that we've made moves toward, but without a willing participant in the trustee and someone that folks are willing to work with, it makes it hard. And Deputy Chief Lewis points out that Reedy Financial has done a study and has figures. Absolutely. David, it would be mostly.
But that's for a district, not a territory. Am I correct?
Correct. Brendan, we did lose you there, but yes. It is for a fire district. However, the data is easily available, and from our past understanding, before we were prohibited from speaking with Gabe Girth, our financial advisor, he stated that if we were to ask for a feasibility study for a fire territory, be it with West Lafayette, which it is on a gut level because we haven't seen any data other than for the fire district. On a gut level, it would be my preferred choice, and one that I would be keen to see a feasibility study for. He said that data, that he should be able to come up with a study fairly easily. However, that requires the trustee allowing that. Yeah. I do want to be, obviously this is recorded, so if there is a gap, I think that we did lose board member Betts. But in the interest of time, I am gonna, and I'm sure he will rejoin. I'll let Ed speak. I'll cede a couple minutes of my time, 3 minutes to be accurate. So I cede the floor to former Chief Ward.
Thanks, Angel. God, man, I guess David's, one thing that might be easiest to understand when it comes to talking about the territories and the personnel, and this isn't a small thing. This is incredibly years worth of work that we've thrown in here. But first and foremost, I want to say when it comes to the SAFER grant, we were blessed by God to not have got that grant. And I say that today because of all of the things that have transpired since that award process occurred. We would really be struggling right now to determine if we were going to be able to keep those folks employed and if we would want to be able to keep them employed given all the things that have taken place. So I hate that we didn't make it through that process, but here we are. But the other part of that is when it comes to the territory district stuff, that's precisely why I'm unemployed. I had a conversation with Gabe at Reedy because quite frankly, there isn't an agency that's going to sit down and have a conversation with you about joining with you and working with you without numbers. They can tell you it looks good. They can say, yeah, we like this idea. But the way, if we want this to treat us like a business, we have to treat it like a business, and we have to go into it with solid numbers and the ability to have those conversations. And my question wasn't to Gabe of, hey, can you put these numbers together? It was, hey, if this is something that we were moving towards, could we get a feasibility study completed as a territory with these options? And he said, oh my goodness, absolutely. And Gabe was completely in support of it and had said he had even started working on that already until the brakes were put on. So my reaching out to him is what created this current situation that I'm in. But the reality of it is we're, to bring it full circle and go back to perf, which is what we all started talking about, guys, is I don't want to see the paid staff that we currently have sitting in the position that I'm in now, where just because we've had a bad week or something negative has happened or we didn't respond the way we needed to, that these guys are out of work and now they don't have the ability to go find another job someplace else. When we originally talked about perf, there wasn't a conversation about playing catch up for Joe and I, not because we didn't want it or didn't feel it was deserved, but the original intent was we're going to start from today. And perf had initially told me that was okay to do since we weren't on the 77 fund yet. If we had been, then we would have to catch people up. But of course, I think at the end of the day, guys, the reality of it is that to try to do the right thing, which is what the board is sitting here trying to do, and all the people that are on this call want to see happen, the right thing is for us all to collectively come together and work forward towards a solid solution. But we've got to do that as adults with numbers. We have to be able to do that with questions being answered to other stakeholders. And until we're able to do that, we're going to be divided. And the sad part for me is it's tearing our department apart. All of the stuff that's occurring in the background is creating an environment where the only people that will be taking runs will be those paid guys anyway. And truthfully, and I think they would tell you, without that volunteer staff that helps supplement all of that, the leadership of the department is volunteers. So without that staff as well, it's really a moot point. So to go back to the fire loans, guys, I can tell you all that none of us were on board with these fire loans. None of us were on board with taking the fire loans, but the only saving grace that we have is it's an additional tax levy, and they're not waiting for us at the end of each year to pay back the money that we have remaining to pay that loan off. It was an additional tax levy that was put on by the state. So that is paying off the loan. So as we take the loan, that money is being absorbed through tax dollars from the state to pay that loan off. So it's not putting us in the hole, but at the end of the day, it is if we don't come up with a solution at the end of this problem. We are deeply in the hole if we don't have a solution. And I know that it may sound obtuse to say it, but we had to do what we had to do, guys. And that's what we were all trying to do, was to try to find a solution for this. And I think that right now, that window of opportunity for us to get this going and make it happen is starting to narrow to a place that something radically is going to have to happen. And David, God bless you, buddy, listening to you. I think it's amazing that this idea of cooperation and teamwork is going to get this accomplished. And I truly believe that it's a possibility. My concern is that for 2 years, we've not seen that. For 2 years, we've seen it is this way or no way. And unfortunately, that way is burning the boats, and we're all stuck trying to figure out now how to keep sailing. So I hope that works the way you want it to. And guys, I'm telling you, I'll make myself available to help however I can, make phone calls, reach out to people, whatever it is I can do. I hope to be able to help in a way that it's able to make this progress work. But at the end of the day, I don't want to see those paid guys that we have get lost in the shuffle and we lose them, and then their career is gone like mine is, and now you got to try to figure it out. So that's all I needed, guys.
Thank you, Chief. I do want to say that the difference between most people and me is I'm retired. So I'm going to give this as absolute much time as it demands, 7 days a week. I don't care. I'm retired. This is my top priority right now. Second part of that is tomorrow I'm bringing supper over to your station at about 5 o'clock. It's going to be Mexican lasagna and Spanish rice.
That's awesome.
We appreciate that, and now I'm a little bit jealous. But going on forward, Brendan, David, were there anything else you wanted to discuss regarding this? We'll have a little bit of more time for discussion too. I do know, Brendan, that you fell out of the call for a little bit. Obviously, this is being recorded, so, but I do apologize. You'll have to go back and listen to it. Any other questions before we do anything?
No.
All right, so, and if you will give me a second here, I know that I need to finish making one thing. I was going to, because we were handed an empty resolution. Now, this isn't for the final vote. This is a motion to amend the resolution, so that we may consider it as amended. I did want to go through and read some of the changes to the empty spots in the original resolution, if that's okay with you guys.
Yep.
I try not to be
Yeah, absolutely.
I try not to be a dictatorial chairman, so if I ask questions, that's fine. It reads at the beginning, whereas there's a blank, Wabash Township Advisory Board is the governing body of, and there's a blank, Wabash Township in Tippecanoe County in the state of Indiana. And whereas the governing body is fully cognizant that the current cost is 19 7/10% of the certified salary for the employer and 6% of certified salary for the employee, and at intervals directed by the Board of Trustees of INPRS, which is the Indiana Public Retirement System. The actuary will review the status of employees covered and shall adjust the cost percentage accordingly so that the fund will remain on actuarially sound basis. And whereas IC 36888A authorizes an employer to pay all or part of the mandatory employee contributions for employees participating in the 1977 fund. Now therefore be it ordained by the governing body of Wabash Township in Tippecanoe County in the state of Indiana, Section 1, the Wabash Township, and then I'm going to skip to Section 2, the Wabash Township agrees to make the required contributions to INPRS that effective as of the first day of May 2021, Wabash Township shall pick up, and I wrote all, like we're going to circle all in that one, all of the mandatory contributions for employees who are members of the 1977 fund. Said employees shall not be entitled to choose to receive the contributed amounts directly instead of having them paid by their employers. So you have to choose either 3A or 3B, and a quick recap of what that would mean. 3A, which is a new money pickup, would mean that we are essentially on top of what they're getting paid. We would like increase their salary essentially so that their take home is the same. And then 3A would be withdrawn. And then salary reduction pickup, which is basically saying that their take home will decrease a little bit, but that amount that's being taken out would go directly into the retirement. And as of right now, the one suggestion is that 3B be put on there, marked, and the initial, in the resolution that we're considering. The following are declared to be covered by the 1977 fund, all full-time firefighters presently employed by the, and I want to get this right, Jim, so I might have to ask specifically there. Would the official title right now of the department be Wabash Township Volunteer Fire Department? Is that the official name of the department? You're muted, but you're still muted. You're still muted. Jim?
There we go. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is still the correct name of the department, I believe.
All right, so I'll include that as such in the resolution that we're proposing.
Angel, just a point of clarification. I'm not discounting Jim because obviously he's my old ex-neighbor, but he's also a chief. I'm looking at the website. It says serving Tippecanoe County since 1971, Wabash Township Fire Department.
Yeah. So I'll suggest, and if it's okay with you guys, we'll leave it with the current thing in my original suggestion, but then we can change it if necessary, because I do know that's part of what I actually don't know for sure, which is a fun thing to not know for sure about fire department. But I've seen both names used interchangeably, so I want to make sure that we put the right one there. But for common parlance, it's understandable that it is the firefighters employed by Wabash.
Gotcha. All right.
And then who have met the minimum medical standards of the 1977 funds and are all subsequent employees hired as full-time firefighters for the Wabash Township. This resolution establishes a retirement fund for the employees declared in section 4 above and supersedes any other resolutions for a retirement system now in effect for said employees. The active date of participation membership of the Wabash Township Fire Department shall begin on the first day of May of 2021. And then section 7, the resolution establishes, and again, this isn't the one that we necessarily have to change to pass right now. We can edit it later. The resolution establishes Wabash Township will purchase prior service. The cost of prior service will be handled according to the following. The township will cover the employer and employee portions of the benefits for currently employed firefighters for the entire duration of their service. Well, duration of their employment, sorry. And then the name of the employees, which would be Joe Wade, Travis Merkel, and Drew Hampshire. And then we have to obviously be adopted this day. That would be filled after we sign it or after we pass it. So having that motion to amend it as described, do I have a second to amend the resolution under consideration in such manner?
Second.
Actually, yeah. And I was just going to note that I support your reference to volunteer in the name. I believe that is the correct terminology to use as the name of the township fire department.
Okay. So there being a second, all those in favor say aye.
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 All right, and seeing no opposition, the motion to amend the resolution has been approved. All right, and we can proceed to a little bit of discussion as to what we want to do going forward, or if there's any concerns or any changes that anybody wants to propose to the resolution. So I'll cede the floor to you guys. If I'll have Brendan go on first, if that's okay, David, just to
Sure.
give an opportunity to speak. All right, Brendan.
I appreciate that. I have nothing to add at this particular moment.
All right. And Dave, do you have any particular changes or whatnot that you would like to see made to the resolution? We are
I'm-
possibly considering it right now for vote later, you know. I'm not gonna spring it on yet. I'll let you know when we're voting on it. Are there any changes or any other suggestions or a different formula that you would like to employ for possibly?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
All right. So if it's okay, I will move to approve the motion as the resolution establishing the 1977 fund. Obviously, like other people also, if actually before I do that, I'll give you guys an opportunity to present a motion to table it if either one of you wants to table the discussion for the future. But I just want to be a very nice board member, board chair. Is there a motion to push it back or table the discussion? Hearing none, I will move to a motion to pass the resolution that establishes a 1977 fund for the firefighters. Is there a second?
Secretary
Second.
Betts will second it.
All right. I'm just because David is new, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna let David second it, okay? Just being silly.
Wow, I am so honored.
All right.
You guys are
so-
too gracious.
All right. So there being a second, we move to a vote. I'll do it a roll call vote since it's a pretty big resolution. So I'll have the secretary call the roll.
Chair, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Board Member Tate, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I, the secretary, will vote in the affirmative as well.
All right. Having thus voted, we have established a 1977 firefighter pension fund effective May 1st. We will make sure with the notes as established, which I will also share with you guys, we will write them into the resolution and present the resolution that we will sign and send to the trustee. And then we will start communicating with the IMPRS so that we may be able to establish that. And I did, yeah, and that's okay. Actually, and this is funny. So if I might actually go back on myself and pardon my screw up parliamentarily. We like, just so that we have an even better specific, like the one that I want to introduce like a second resolution basically to include on the side how long we'll be paying for it. So if you guys allow me to go out of regular order, I want to present a short resolution that basically states how we'll be paying for the past expenses, if that's okay with you guys.
Sure.
All right. So, and I will include this one for you guys, but essentially it says, whereas the Wabash Township has joined the 1977 fund and has agreed to pay to cover the employer and employee portions of the benefits for currently employed firefighters for the duration of their employment in the township. The Wabash Township will pay for this amount over the period of 4 years, meaning that for all of the past expenses, it'll be covered over a longer period of time to allow for a little bit of a smoother transition, and after that point, we'll be all covered up. I present that resolution.
Chair,
Have a second.
Chair, can you share that resolution at all via your screen?
Yes, give me a second here, okay? Because I have to be better about this. Because
And then I'll also throw out a point of, at this point, I suppose clarification, but I'm seeing in the chat, the spreadsheet notes Drew Hampshire, and it should be Drew Hampton.
oh, okay. I will correct that. Sorry about that. It was a mistake.
According to our eagle eyes at the fire department.
I am sorry, Drew. I apologize for that. It was a mistake. When, in my defense, I took the numbers from a spreadsheet that Deputy Chief Jim Lewis said. So I'm just gonna like pass the buck onto him on this particular issue. Sorry about that. All right. And if you give me a second, I'm technologically challenged, so I'm gonna get it to you. All right. So if you give me a minute, I'll put it on. Okay.
If you don't mind, I comment while you're working on Hal, I just want to let you
Yeah.
know that for Joe and Travis and Drew, this took a big load off of their mind and a lot of stress out of their lives, and they really appreciate the fact that you guys have passed this resolution for the perf.
Long overdue, Chief, long overdue.
And thank you
Yeah.
for sharing those sentiments. Yeah, for sure. I know we're happy to diligently work to support them, and we know they've more than earned it.
Well, thanks for everybody at the fire department also.
All right, and now I'm gonna actually share from my second bit, and I will like format it later so that it's in a better format. I've written it out, and I do apologize that it's not the nicest looking resolution ever, but I will edit it after we pass it potentially to make sure.
Angel, just for us senior citizens that are over 75, when you don't speak in the microphone,
Oh, sorry.
I feel like I'm watching a Three Stooges video here. I see your lips move, but can't hear anything.
All right. I was just saying I do apologize that I haven't had it in like the nicer format, and I'll make sure to edit it to like be in a much nicer looking document.
Thank
so
you.
that it's more official. But the text of the resolution would be the following again. Whereas the Wabash Township has agreed to cover the employer and employee portions of the benefits for currently employed firefighters for the entire duration of their employment prior to May 1st, 2021, be it resolved that the Wabash Township will pay the prior service over the course of 4 years. And I would actually amend my own resolution to state that starting on May 1st, just to indicate the end date, just to make it more clear.
Good.
Yeah, you might put the whole period of time.
Yeah. Right. All right. As it stands, like that's the latest update of the resolution. Is there a second to pass this motion?
Second.
Is there all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And Chair, can you please make that document shareable so I may add that text to our minutes?
Yes, I will do that. All right. And then what I will do, I know it'll be a little bit of, this is resolution 2021-6, based on the timeline at which we passed it. And I will make sure to send it with you, Brenda. And then we'll make sure to post the official one on the website as well once we sign all the documents. Sorry that we can't do it in person. It's a bit of a pain right now, but we will do that and proceed to have it explicitly signed. All right. I am going to here. I'm gonna stop recording. Sorry, stop sharing. right, and then going on to the next thing, and what I would suggest is, let me pull this up here. Sorry. We have the meeting agenda. One second. Even with two screens, I don't have enough stuff. All right, so the next part of it, and I would suggest based on the time, if that's okay. I wanted to cover the review of township assistance guidelines, as well as the review of a possible niches agreement for Sandridge. On the second point, on point number 10 in the agenda, I hadn't had the time to be able to speak with Gus in the past couple of days, and I would hope actually to push that back, as well as, if it's okay, push back township assistance guideline discussion to next month. But I will provide a link as well, and if we can include that in the minutes of what we'll be discussing, and include the current township assistance guidelines as present in the trustees website. Would we be able to do that, Brendan?
Yeah, folks, I'll go ahead and make a resolution, table items 9, 10, and 11 on our agenda. That would be the review of township assistance guidelines, review of possible niches agreement, and then resolution to move funds to cover legal counsel. Obviously, we haven't seen the documentation necessary to warrant that move. I would move to table items 9, 10, and 11 on our agenda.
All right. I second that motion. Is there any opposition? No. All right. So having done that, we move on to the future meeting dates for 2021. I'll include our current date is May 18th, 2021, which is the third Tuesday of the month in May. And what I hope to really cover there would be a township assistance guidelines and amendments of those. So I'll make sure to share with the board members as well for that information. And obviously we can't really discuss that prior to that based on open door laws, but I'm going to make sure that I ask questions, and you guys can feel free to ask questions, asking the trustee and office staff as well if there's any concerns or stuff like that, as well as you guys can jot down your own concerns or stuff regarding the township assistance guidelines and how we can make them clearer if needed, as well as I know that it's a big concern for me, and part of what I'll be focusing on going on that is the issues regarding the $250 limit, which is, as I understand,
Office policy, not a.
yeah, which is office policy, but is not part of the guidelines, which might
Right.
be hampering people seeking assistance. That's a big concern for me. And I also want to check, and it's something that has been an issue in other townships that I've heard of, that trustees, like let's say that you have a $700 rent, and let's say the trustee is saying they will only cover $250, that if they haven't provided anything else, right, then they assume that they won't be able to keep the house and then don't provide any assistance at all. So that's a concern as well that I have, and I would like to see more answers and clear guidance as to what office policy is regarding that.
Chair, on that note, I would also bring to our agenda for review over the next meeting or two, our procedures as it pertains to gas card, nepotism, etc. I know we've had new board members since we've reviewed those policies as a board. So I think it would be in our best interest to look at all those policies again, just for awareness sake at very least.
Yeah. And we'll make sure to do that, as well as the other thing that we'll have on there is a possible niches agreement, as previous board, as current, he was at the time board member as well, so Brendan would be aware. There was really the duties regarding Sandridge were really passed on to the board. And like part of what had been under consideration last year was the agreement with niches, which was, as I understand it, was we incurred no cost there. We actually saved money for the township, but we have some issues that we have to double check before we go forward with that, including like some concerns that were raised regarding plots and how they were cleared and stuff like that. So we can cover some of that, and I'm looking forward to speaking with Gus regarding those issues, and hopefully we can have him on the next meeting and cover those specifically and have him answer questions as well.
Perfect. Perfect.
All right. So having
With that
covered
in
the
mind- Oh.
oh, with that in mind, yeah.
I was just gonna move to adjourn, actually.
All right. I would second. Is there any opposition? David, do you want to continue this meeting?
Oh my God, everybody's going, don't let that guy talk anymore.
All right.
For everybody who still hasn't begged out, thank you for your participation. Thank you for continued support of these professional firefighters. And we're going to work to do whatever it is to keep them here.
Yeah. And we really appreciate all of you guys that came. As we said, the next meeting will be on May 18th. As for now, we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna pause.